Exactly What to Say, a book review with mediator Sylvia Mayer, part of the series Mediation Book Reviews. That is our topic for today. Welcome to the Lawyers and Mediators International Show and Podcast by InstantMediations.com, where we discuss law and conflict resolution topics to educate both professionals and everyday people. Catch regular episodes on YouTube, the Instant Mediations app, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Just remember, nothing in these episodes constitutes legal advice, so be sure to talk to a lawyer, as cases are fact-dependent. Hi, everyone. This is Mac Natalia, attorney, mediator, arbitrator working throughout Florida and Texas.
And Natalia Łuskaczajka, advocate, mediator, and arbitrator from Warsaw, Poland, again, and last time from Houston, Texas.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sylvia Mayer. I'm an arbitrator, mediator, and attorney, also located in Houston, Texas. And I am also an avid reader and thrilled to be part of this book review.
Thanks so much, Sylvia. So we've done past book reviews with you before, and occasionally we've gotten the actual author to show up and talk with us. So today we are talking about a book that you introduced us to, and that is the book by Phil Jones called Exactly What to Say. First, let's explain what the book is, where people can get it, so people can at least have a starting point. I'll go ahead and share my screen real quick so that folks who might be watching can check out the actual book that you're referencing. All right. So I'm actually on Phil M. Jones's, the author's author page, where it lists all of his different works. And one of them, as you see here, is an audio book of the main book, Exactly What to Say. And I'll blow that up a little bit more. Exactly What to Say, The Magic Words of Influence and Impact by Phil M. Jones. And I believe he's in the UK. So unfortunately, we haven't had the author join us yet, but we've checked it out. And we wanted to have you, Sylvia, talk with us. Why is this book influential to you? And then how do you connect it with the theme that we're always discussing, which is mediation? Go ahead.
Absolutely. So I came across this book when I was listening to a podcast about negotiation. And in the podcast, they were interviewing this author. And there's the podcast that I was listening to. And they interviewed Phil Jones about this book. And some of his comments made me really stop and think, wow, the things he's saying can help me in my mediation practice. Some of the ideas he's talking about would be useful in helping parties find their path to resolution. So I ran out and got the book, and I have it in both paper form and I got it in audio form as well. And it is a quick read and a quick listen, but really sticks with you. In the book, he provides 23 different suggestions that are literally exactly what to say as part of Magic Words to help you with persuasion. And I highly recommend it to people, not just in the context of mediation, but it can be useful in other aspects of your life as well.
And based on that, Sylvia, as we know, we also wrote a blog post, which can be found on your website and on your LinkedIn profile. And I understand that these are some takeaways that you have your person as a person taken away from this book. Tell us a little about it.
Sure. So there were a couple of segments in his book that I really found really tied in to things that I do or want to do or skills I want to use in my mediation practice. So I honed in on 4 magic words or phrases, if you will. But, if, imagine, and good news. So the one about but, I was literally reading and listening to this book at a time when a friend shared with me a story about her son. And her son is an incredibly talented athlete, but he had gone on an interview at a university that was recruiting him. And the the coach of the team was just so exuberant about the talent this kid had. And he kept going on and on and on about how talented he was and how skilled he was. And then at the end of this long, very exuberant, positive feedback, he said, but you really lack the training you need to get ahead. Now, what this guy was trying to say is you have incredible talent and you need more training, and then that will help you grow and you will have great possibilities. But all this kid took away was, I don't have the training. I guess I can't do this. And that really struck me because I literally, this example came up while I was reading and listening to the book. And I thought about it and on how you can use but, and it changes the meaning of what you're saying. So if we just use that example, and this is what I wrote in my post, one way to use the word but would be to say, you have great instincts and natural talent, but you lack the training you need to get ahead. Our brains are trained so that we only retain what comes after but. We are mentally prepared to focus on the word but triggers our brains to mentally focus on what comes next. So if you flip the sentence around, instead you say, you lack the training you need to get ahead, but you have great instincts and natural talent. Well, now the thing that person has heard is they have great instincts and natural talent, which allows them to then take in the fact that they may need some more training to bring that out. So I thought that was a really profound example of how just using one word and the way you phrase things can change the impact on the listener. And it comes up in mediation all the time because in mediations all the time, we are sharing with people information that is contrary to their preconceived views. And so using but as a way to deliver both positive and negative information, but framing it in a way so they can hear it, is a really important tool for us to use as mediators.
Yeah. So for example, let's say we're doing a divorce mediation, right? And we have a husband and a wife sitting across, well, let's say in this situation that they are in caucus rooms and they're not together. So they are heated, they're impassioned, the injustice juices are flowing and people think that they're being wronged. So the mediator walks into one of the rooms and says to the wife, for example, your husband wants the house, but he'll give you $100,000.
Exactly.
Might that be taken a certain way if you instead don't say, your husband will give you $100,000, but he's going to keep the house. Might that, if you have very, very strong connections with that house, might it affect you or impact you in how you're going to respond based on the way the mediator phrases it? So is that what you're getting at? That one word can make or break a mediation or can pull out certain responses and reactions from individuals?
Absolutely. And what you put before the but versus after the but is the critical takeaway here. So there's a huge difference between your husband wants the house, but he'll pay you $100,000. Or he'll pay you $100,000, but he wants the house.
Exactly.
Huge difference.
You can see how that's going to either blow things up or move it toward a settlement.
One of the words actually, because it's your personal pickup, and I absolutely admire the things because I see maybe much like you, things that can be used in mediation, but also in everyday life. And what I really found fascinating was the word imagine, which is also a part of the blog you wrote. So the word imagine that concentrate on creativity, and I wouldn't say intuitively, but by training, I was already using in mediation this sort of shifting people's interests and emotions into, but after we've done that, that will, if I use that, it will Imagine that. You will be able to sleep peacefully when we're done with this conflict. Can you imagine that? Waking up fresh and without stress? Imagine. And I do believe it is a very powerful word, and we're not using it enough. What do you think, both of you?
Absolutely. So in the book, he makes this point that from a very young age, the phrase once upon a time opens up our imagination. And that once we've opened up our imagination, we are now open to and can be receptive of new possibilities. And so as we grow older, you don't so much need the phrase once upon a time anymore, because that has taught you to be imaginative. And so now we can use the word imagine, and it automatically in our brain tells our brain, okay, story coming. Okay, be prepared to create pictures in your mind. Be prepared to be open to something new. And so you say, imagine if you had closure. Imagine if this dispute was behind you and you could focus all of your energies on building your business or repairing your life or whatever the thing is that is their goal. It is an incredibly powerful world, and it gives us permission to set aside the thinking, critical, analytical part of our brain and to be open and present and looking ahead to something maybe we couldn't think of before.
I think that for the word imagine, people want to maybe intuitively imagine having a problem resolved, but no one has called them and given them permission to do it. And you know how in marketing or in just social studies, we talk about the word call to action.
Mm-hmm.
And a call to action is something, a button you might put in a website or something that motivates somebody and compels them to do something, an encouragement, you could say. And so that word imagine, gives them a permission to, yes, set down on the side any obstacles and just think about it, because that opens up the door for something to actually, change possibly. So yeah, awesome. But what other words have you thought up in your article?
So another word that I really focused on that he uses is if.
Mm-hmm.
And if is an incredibly powerful word. Just those two little letters, if, are really powerful because they help us skip a step, right? There may be something, somebody keeps saying, but this can't happen. This can't happen because we don't have X, whatever X is. Okay, but if we had X, then what? And it lets you, as you see, I wrote in the article, it lets you leapfrog over a barrier. So you can move past that and try to think about possibilities beyond it. Because once you figure out the possibilities on the other side of the obstacle, you can come back and solve for the obstacle. And so I really loved the idea of using the word if as a way to jump barriers. If this helped how would you feel if this helps your business grow? If 2 customers like it, then others will too. Those were examples that I put in my article. But you can use it in so many different ways. So I might have a mediation where somebody says, perhaps they have an existing business relationship and they say, but my contract doesn't allow for that. Okay, well, if the other side would agree to modifications of the contract, then what kind of modifications would you need in order to get this done? If the other side would waive that thing you identified as an impediment, then what would you be able to give them in return? It is an incredibly powerful word. And while I have used it in mediations before, I had never really focused on the magic of the word before.
And back to the words you really liked and things that you shared with us as well, there was also something that you wanted to say about the power of how we ask questions. That was also inspired by this book. So
Yes.
what was your great eureka about it?
Yes. So this was not something that I included in my article, but this I thought was a really important point in the book. He makes the point that so often we will say at the end of a discussion, do you have any questions? But when you ask someone, do you have any questions? It puts the onus on them to provide a question. And if they don't have any questions, they feel stupid. And so you have now criticized, unintentionally, you have criticized them because they may feel stupid. They may walk away, or they may say, oh, I don't have any questions right now. I need to think about it, because they feel like they must have questions. And so then they want to walk away and go take time to think about it. So his suggestion is don't frame it that way. You can still invite questions, but frame it this way. What questions do you have for me? And that way, if they don't have any questions, they can say, oh, I don't have any, but blah, 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 blah. The dialogue can continue. There's no implicit criticism of them. They're not put on the spot. And I thought it was a really incredibly perceptive point that I've been trying to incorporate as I go forward, because I have a horrible habit of saying, and now what questions do you have for me? And so now I'm saying, do you have any questions? And so I'm trying to incorporate, now what questions do you have for me? Apparently I have incorporated it and I just let it slip.
So in this book, there's approximately 23 different key points of phrases that you need to consider saying, and he builds them around chapters, right? And so the first one is, I'm not sure if it's for you, but, and that is a good phraseology to use because it doesn't put any kind of burden on the person. And it's a great tactic that marketers have been using on all of us for years. Okay, hey, I'm not sure if it's for you, but will you consider, signing up for my podcast? And the person is now, they don't feel pressured because you gave them permission not to have to feel obligated, but they've been incentivized, and some curiosity has been built into them to now want to go ahead and take the other step. The person might not sign up for your podcast, of course, but the way you say it, hey, I'm not sure if it's for you, but so just one example out of the 23, and then the other example is you gave, like if or but or imagine. All of these are what I would call, psychological tools that are intuitive to all of us. And it seems like no matter how much we run away from these phrases, they still impact us in English anyway. I'm sure there are other cultural components and other cultural cues and customs that might have different effects. But in English, this works. The words you use matters. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I also wanted to say that going briefly through the list of the magical phrases in the book, I found fascinating the one that was, when will there be a good time for? People usually, because that's actually a very kind question with a nice assumption that there will be a good time for something. So you're making people want that because there will be good time for something. So really, this is a book about the power of words and how in everyday life we can also use that. I definitely would want to be asked, when will you do that? That wouldn't be a question I would want to, but when there will be a good time for you to sit with me and have this conversation. That's a very kind and open statement.
And Sylvia, what other phrases do you recall were very influential on you?
So let me just elaborate on what y'all were just chatting on, because in the book, he goes through specific phrases and he talks about why phrasing it this way is effective to achieve this goal. And then I extracted from what he wrote key words that I thought would be helpful for me to use in a mediation, because I'm trying to accomplish something different in a mediation than he is in a sales context, which is his book. But I think they are all valuable. So I really strongly recommend that someone read or listen to the entirety of this book. But there's one last phrase that I'd like to visit about that I pulled out of his book that I think is so incredibly powerful, and I use in mediations all the time. And that phrase is good news. And I use it frequently. Obviously, I use it in mediation when we settle, and I can walk in and say, good news, they accepted your offer. But I also use it when I find myself in a situation where the parties are so embedded in the differences they have. And the reality is, in almost every conflict, there are similarities, and people lose sight of that. And so they may actually agree on 8 of the 10 things, and it's the 2 things where they're stuck and they're focused on their conflict on the 2. So I will sometimes in those situations say to the parties, the good news is, here's what you agree on. And I will list all the things they agree on. And because that list is long, it gives them a sense of optimism. It gives them a feeling of hope, because they realize there really is a lot of common ground here. And now we can build on that to try and solve the places where we have conflict.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, so definitely, if you're a party going to a mediation, don't be surprised if your mediator uses some of these tools on the other side, of course, to try to get the parties to settle. And if you just want good tips on, selling and marketing, generally speaking, in everyday life, it also works. So with that, we've reached our 21 minutes, and we're going to be closing out. Sylvia, as usual, thank you so much. And we will continue the conversation soon enough. All right. All right, guys. Mac Natalia signing out.
Natalia Skaczajka. Until the next time.
Bye-bye.